Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Boris Lokschin, CEO of Spryker Systems. So excited to have you, Boris. We heard your presentation earlier, so thrilled. But maybe you can describe for our audience a little bit about Spryker and your role and everything everything good you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Spryker is an enterprise digital commerce platform designed and focused around B2B, primarily B2B. We call it actually sophisticated transactional business models, which it just happens that majority of the use case would sit rather in the B2B bucket. But enterprise marketplaces, B2B marketplaces, IoT commerce or sync commerce is important. You would every once in a while also find some B2C use cases as well, but primarily it would be for B2B. We are 650 people, started the business.
650?
Yeah,
wow.
In 40 countries now.
40 countries?
40 countries.
Wow, okay.
Started the business 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago. And we'll be working with enterprise clients primarily, like larger organizations, and support them.
Yep.
So what led you to start the company?
Actually, the observation. So a couple of things that I shared today actually led to founding Spryker. I had two digital commerce platform businesses before. They were all in the B2C retail space. And at some point, it became very apparent that more industries and verticals are starting to build transactional capabilities or digitally enable the revenues outside of B2C retail, manufacturing, services, telcos, food and groceries, pharma, life science, medtech, large multi-trillion-dollar industries with very sophisticated use cases, which have nothing to do with this straightforward B2C retail case selling T-shirts online with discount coupon codes. And most of the platforms, or all other platforms, are basically designed primarily for this B2C retail use case. And this is one observation. Another one was the methodology piece that I talked about today, that large organizations started to embrace methodologies such as agility, MVP approaches. Nobody wanted and wants this 24 months projects anymore, and there's updates every 12 months. So all these kind of things led to Spryker.
I really liked what you said about the number one KPI is time.
Yes.
That really resonated with me, Boris. I think you're right. So, tell us more about that. When time to market is one of the most important things these days, right? For B2B companies. Tell us more about why.
Yeah, I mean, time. Essentially, if you think about it, I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that many organizations are doing when they are going through digital transformation. Actually, right? They try to overthink. They try to overcomplicate. They suffer from what I call featureitis, right? They try. They would spend a lot of time and money to write these RFPs, which by definition is already kind of set up for failure because it's a process designed in the 90s, and then if you are running this process based on something from the 90s, you will buy software from the 90s very, very, very likely. So they would not hire aggressively enough. They would not launch cases fast enough. And as I said, time is then at the end of the day the most important KPI, because nothing for them will be cheaper. It will not be easier tomorrow. It will not be cheaper. It will not be more attractive. So they try to optimize for the perfect relaunch, or for the perfect app, or for the perfect pricing feature, but they are losing on time, and the market will move on them. It's already moving on them, because what made these companies, especially in Germany, we are a manufacturing country. We have many so-called hidden champions, and these would be category leaders in a niche, multi-billions of revenues. You never heard of this logo. Sometimes they call us in and we're like, okay, what is this company doing? And then you check them out on Wikipedia, and like,
whoa,
it's a 20
big
billion.
company.
They're selling silicon isolations for Windows.
Ooh.
Crazy. But what made them grow in the last years or decades were basically two things. One is intransparency of markets, right? So intransparency on availability, pricing, etc. So it was very hard to compare. You could not just throw in the sneakers SKU into the Google search and get a price comparison or stock or availability comparison across sites. So intransparency, and then locked up customer relationships that they had, which led to customer-specific pricing, to all the things that you guys know better than I do. But this is breaking up now, right? You can now, you can get a quote for the same spare part from someone in China very easily. We have a customer here in California. They have 600 million SKUs.
Wow.
You throw in a bill
600 million?
600 million. You throw in a bill of material with thousands of lines, and within seconds, you get the full transparency over where these parts are, what the price is. And this is breaking up now. This is why time matters. You can't execute, you can't relaunch in 12 months.
Well, I like that you quoted in your talk, you quoted Jeff Bezos and talked about, and one of the things that Amazon, Andy, is famous for is testing, right, and failing and learning from this. I mean, Amazon Business came out of the failure of Amazon Supply in a lot of ways, right? Amazon Supply didn't work.
Amazon won't tell you that, but that's true.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. We had a former executive.
It was a natural progression, and one led to the other.
Exactly. But I think that is actually the point, though. Is really it's about iterating, and I think Boris, that's what you're saying, right? It's about iterating, learning from your mistakes. So how does these concepts of flexibility, composable commerce, headless commerce, all those things play into that? What kind of?
I mean, it helps you because essentially you don't have this large monolithic application. You can launch use cases. You can slice them by catalog, by cohorts, by devices, in horizontally or vertically. It doesn't matter that much, right? You can release more often. You can. It's much more isolated, right? You don't have to. Go back to your corporate IT that much, right? So we see much more greenfield use cases, attached play use cases, especially as companies are going through this digital transformation. They're not replatforming from a legacy B2B 1.0, as I call it, responsive spare part shop, to a more modern spare part shop. They're thinking about new use cases, right? So I mentioned this CapEx, OpEx type of transition. This is one of the most frequently asked for things or strategies that we hear, that companies don't want to sell their printing machines, Ricoh or CT scanners, Siemens, or elevators as Otis. They want to build recurring revenue type of business models. They want to charge in a consumption-based pricing way, right? They want to charge by the print, by the usage, by the scan. And this is fundamental shift. There is nobody in the organization. There was nobody 3 years ago owning a multi-billion-dollar P&L for this business model, and this is it is enabled digitally through this entire composable commerce story is all nice, but this is kind of commodity architecture nowadays. There is no other way. So what's the alternative, right? So you're not in the cloud, you're not having APIs, or you're not headless. People are talking way too much about it. More important is the actual business agility that is enabled by that.
So, good question. So you mentioned that there's a commoditization of the architecture. I would argue there's been a commoditization of product feature design in the industry in general. I follow this pretty closely.
Yeah.
I see a lot of sea of sameness stuff.
Yes.
So here's the tough question.
Yeah.
Why is Spryker different from everybody else in this regard? Everybody promises time to market. Everybody promises low, total cost of ownership.
Right.
How do you actually deliver on it?
I think three things. So first of all, again, we are not competing in this commodity use case space, right? Which is very well represented. There are very good players from SMB to the enterprise, right? If you try to help the type of customers we are working with, there is not that much competition. And I think three things that really stand out is one is the depth of functionality. I mean, you just said commodity, right? So think about in the B2C retail use case, the primary value proposition is basically to innovate at the experience layer, right? We give you a commodity card API service. There is the API, and then you customer, you build your brand experience. This is the value proposition. If you just take all the bullshit aside, right? In our use case, if you have a truck manufacturer, the card consists of up to 100 third-party APIs, right? They would have everything integrated with supply chain, end-of-life management, dependency management between the different parts, pricing, real-time order simulation. So they need to solve. So the value proposition does not sit in our card allows you to add to cart, remove from cart, change quantity, apply discounts. This is, of course, our card API can do this as well, but it's different. So the depth of functionality of things like cart checkout pricing is one. Second is data, right? Typically, especially in the scenarios we handle, you deal with much more data, billions of prices, hundreds of millions of SKUs. And if you think about, for example, the enterprise B2B capabilities we have, this kind of gets multiplied, right? So you out of a sudden have more complex orders. You need to split them. You need to orchestrate it between the merchants. You have even more products, even more variants. You have multiple merchants supplying multiple variants for different prices in different warehouses. So the complexity in terms of data goes up. And then three is, of course, the very B2B specific functionality and also around the APIs. I mentioned IoT commerce. This is, and subscriptions. Very good combination. Something customer asks us about very often, right? Because otherwise they can't make the industrial printer smart. They can't make the elevator smart to schedule maintenance appointments and predictably pre-order spare parts. So I think these 3 dimensions, right? So specific functionality for marketplace in B2B, the PaaS nature of the platform, which is not SaaS, so it's not, hey, there is the API, you can't change anything underneath. Yes, you can, and we want you to change it because this is what differentiates you, right? So we want to allow this car manufacturer or this truck manufacturer to build these integrations while us still providing the capabilities in the cloud and maintaining, upgrading them.
Are you seeing a real convergence of e-commerce and the marketplace model? I know one of the things that Spryker, you guys talk a lot about is leveraging the marketplace model together with traditional e-commerce. Are you seeing a lot of your customers?
We see this as an evolutionary step, right? So what you typically would see is that customers who kind of get to a certain level of sophistication success, it's a very natural next step for them to start offloading, inventory risk, right? Or by inviting other merchants. You see the rise for B2B and B2C. You see the rise of IT spend, right? This composable enterprise story is nice, but there are also downsides, right? Let's be honest, right? You have more vendors, you need to integrate with them. There is nobody giving you this one unified SLA. Nobody is accountable. You have 15 third-party services and products integrated from commerce to PIM to OMS, right? There is no this one big vendor that you can squeeze anymore like in the old days, right? No unified support, first, second tier. So there are downsides to this as well. And of course, you need to kind of trade them in. So you want to get the ability to subsidize your rising IT spend and complexity by inviting other merchants who can contribute.
But isn't that really the promise of a headless solution? Is you have, particularly in large legacy, global organizations that might have 15 ERPs and CMSs that are optimized in different countries around the world, and some of them might have e-commerce, others don't. I mean, isn't that really the best use case for a headless solution?
It is the best use case, but it's not the biggest problem that you try to solve, right? So these customers typically would have, especially as again these monolithic applications break up, right? So now imagine, what has changed? You had a large monolithic application that you bought from one of the large legacy players. Now you have 15 applications or 3-4 applications and some third-party services, right? But you lost a unified SLA, you lost first, second level support, you need to take care of the integrations. Spryker releases 15 times per day, PayPal releases 10 times per day, so who ensures compatibility of APIs? So all these things, someone needs to take care of. It's either you as a customer or it's your partner.
So what is the answer, Boris? I mean, who's responsible for it? Is it Spryker, or is it a systems integrator, or is it?
So what we are doing is we are launching in 4 weeks from now. We are launching what we call App Orchestration Platform, which is basically exactly that. So it gives you the ability to get access to third-party services, search, recommendation engine, payment, logistic, tracking, in an Apple-like way. So you just swipe. It's curated. It's secure. It's kind of the Apple golden cage in a way, right? So it's a curated selection, right? But we take full ownership, right? So we ensure compatibility. We give you full SLA coverage. As for the core platform, you get first, second line support.
Are these free or is
it's free? It's free for you as a customer. So we deal it with the partners. So there's obviously a commercial model for us behind it, but we are not charging the customer anything for this. But there might also be other ways of solving the same or similar problem. But it's definitely there's definitely something.
You're on the path to becoming a full stack solution.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not a full stack solution because again we're not owning this.
I'm joking,
right? This
but yes,
this is the big difference that we are not owning it, but we orchestrate. This is what we call it, app orchestration platform, because we orchestrate the relationship, right?
The point is there's choices, right? You have choices of different, plug and play solutions.
Exactly.
Right. So that's great.
Yeah. So last question before we get to the fun part. So are you frustrated by the fact that it's a crowded space with a lot of money flowing into the space, or are you energized by that?
We are super energized. Again, in general, I think if you look at all the verticals, industries, the digital commerce penetration is still low, right? Especially in B2B. So typically the industry that I mentioned, right, they would have 1 to 5% maybe of digitally enabled revenues, right? Be multi-trillion dollars, growing 3 or 4 digit per year for the digital business, bringing in talent, bringing in people wanting to buy modern B2B enterprise technologies. So we are super excited by this, right? And even though majority of the other players are rather sitting in the B2C retail market, still good, right? I mean, there's a lot, many legacy platforms to be replatformed. So I think it's good. There is nothing that holds us back.
Well, as we close here, let's have a little fun.
Okay.
Let's ask this has now become our favorite question. Put the seatbelt on.
Okay.
So, what's your favorite or best pandemic story? It can be professional, it can be personal,
yeah.
but
Okay.
we figure this is a unique time to ask this question. So,
Sure.
tell us something funny.
So when the pandemic started, everyone was trying to find and kind of maintain and keep the relationships that all of us had, and for us it was very interesting. We started seeing all these Slack groups popping up, right? And people organized themselves around whatever they liked, right? So there was a group for there were obviously the usual wine tastings,
Right.
whatever groups,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Cheese tastings, wine tastings,
Uh-huh.
but also groups like a virtual band, right? People met together. People met to read books together and discuss books or share photos from their vacation. And write songs, watch movies even, right? So
Wow.
I found this Netflix feature where you can watch with someone else. So this was to be honest, this was very fun and very inspiring. And the interesting fact was that typically in the pre-COVID times, you would hang around with people from your office or your location or your country. And again, we are scattered across 40 countries at the moment, right?
Right.
And what you found yourselves ending up were groups and new combinations of people that you would have not met otherwise, because all of a sudden you joined this rock band group and you played with someone from Nigeria and from Australia and from the US, and you went to the cheese tasting group. And
Which one did you join?
I joined the tastings groups. I joined the books group as well. I liked it a lot. And I watched a couple of movies as well. But this was a kind of very interesting, and very fun way, because all of a sudden, you would see people and hang around with people you would not have met otherwise.
Well, the pandemic, I think, really has reinforced the value of human connection and fellowship and just being together. And it's so wonderful to get together back in person with everyone too.
Yes.
But
Present company experience.
I call it in 3D. So
Yeah,
it's,
really, that's right.
And
That's
the fun fact, maybe my personal, rather post-corona fun fact is, in Zoom, everyone looks the same, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is the same size, same
That's right,
height.
that's right.
And then you meet the people in real life. Oh, you're that tall, or you're so small.
I did that with your partner, Alex.
Alex is about
Alex.
7 feet
Alex.
tall.
Meters,
That's right,
right.
Alex.
Exactly. So, but on Zoom, everyone is the same,
That's
right?
right.
And I think this is what I like the most. So finally, you meet the people.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
It's wonderful. Well, Boris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
It's
you
been
for
really
having
a great interview, and we appreciate your presentation earlier. Learned a few things from that. So thank you, and keep up the good work. So we appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for having me.
All right.